Imagine building a family, only to watch it shatter from the inside out. That's the story of NewJeans and ADOR, a tale that began with record-breaking success and descended into one of K-pop's most gripping and controversial legal battles. For nearly a year, fans watched in disbelief as the beloved group fought to break free from their own company, only to make a stunning reversal that no one saw coming. The question on everyone's lips is simple: what really happened behind closed doors to make them go back? The conflict erupted into the public eye when it was revealed that NewJeans, alongside ADOR's CEO Min Hee-jin, were attempting to terminate their exclusive contracts. This wasn't just a standard dispute. It felt like a civil war. The narrative we were all sold was one of unwavering unity. The 5 members, Min Hee, Hani, Danielle, Haerin, and Hyein, were presented as a solid front, standing shoulder to shoulder with their CEO against the parent company HYBE. They weren't just employees. They were revolutionaries. Fans who had dubbed themselves bunnies rallied behind them, convinced the girls were fighting for a better, more artistic future. And the hashtag #WeSupportNewJeans trended worldwide. The consensus was clear: they would never back down. But cracks in this united front began to appear in the most subtle ways, details that only seemed obvious in hindsight. While Min Hee, Hani, and Danielle were visibly vocal, with Hani even addressing the issue at the National Assembly, the younger members, Haerin and Hyein, were noticeably quiet. Online, their silence was a void filled with growing speculation. Were they fully on board, or were they perhaps hesitant? Rumors began to swirl on platforms like Reddit and X, suggesting that the 2 youngest might have felt pressured to align with the group for the sake of loyalty, a terrifying position for any teenager to be in. At the time, most dismissed this as naive anxiety, but the truth was far more complicated and was about to explode into the open. The first major bomb dropped on November 12th when ADOR released an official statement that sent shockwaves through the industry. Haerin and Hyein were returning to the label. According to the company, the 2 had taken time to reflect with their families and, after considering a recent court ruling, decided to honor their existing contracts. The statement asked fans for support and to avoid speculation. But how could they not speculate? This was the unthinkable. The 2 members who had seemingly been part of the united front were suddenly the first to break ranks. The public reaction was instantly divided. Some fans expressed deep disappointment, feeling it was a betrayal of their original stance. Others, however, argued it was a pragmatic move. One viral comment read, "Good for them. They are too young to destroy their careers for a woman who will not hesitate to throw them under the bus." The situation immediately drew parallels to the group 50/50, where one member, Kina, had returned to her agency while the others continued their fight, a comparison that painted a grim picture of NewJeans' future. This is where the story plunges into the messy, private world of family dynamic and legal guardianship. Months before the November announcement, an exclusive report from Chosun Biz had hinted at the chaos unfolding behind the scenes. The report claimed that the parents of one of the underage members were deeply divided. One wanted to terminate the contract with ADOR, while the other wanted their daughter to stay. Because the member was a minor, both parents had to agree for any legal action to proceed. When they couldn't, the dispute was reportedly taken to a family court. At the time, this was largely dismissed by fans as media play, a strategic leak from HYBE to make NewJeans look unstable. But now, with the return of Hyein and Haerin, these old reports were being revisited with a forensic intensity. Online investigators and media outlets like New Daily began piecing together the puzzle from court records. A defendant listed with the last name Kang, Haerin's surname, was identified in the documents. Further digging suggested that the parent who opposed the lawsuit was, in fact, Hyen's father. Reports allege that he had initially agreed with the termination but later changed his mind, leading to a legal battle with his own wife over the right to represent their daughter. The theory emerged that Hyen's father even filed a civil lawsuit to secure guardianship rights specifically to ensure she could return to ADOR. This added a devastating new layer to the controversy. It was no longer just a story about artists versus a corporation. It was a story about a child caught in the middle of a bitter dispute between her own parents. The decision to return may not have been a simple change of heart, but the result of intense familial and legal pressure that the members themselves had little control over. The shock of Haerin and Hyen's return had barely settled when an even more stunning twist unfolded. Just days later, the remaining 3 members, Min Hee, Hani, and Danielle, released their own statement confirming they too were returning to ADOR. Their announcement felt rushed, almost panicked. They explained the delay was because one member was overseas, but notably stated that ADOR had not responded to them, forcing them to go public themselves. This raised a critical question. Were they making a genuine choice, or had they been backed into a corner? With 2 members already back, their legal battle was effectively over. The united front had collapsed, and their leverage was gone. The court of public opinion was swift. Many speculated that they returned not out of desire but out of necessity, realizing they had no viable path forward on their own. The year-long standoff ended not with a bang, but with a whimper, as all 5 members found themselves back at the company they had once been so determined to leave. So, where does this leave NewJeans? The group is now reunited under ADOR, but the scars of this controversy are deep and will likely shape their future in profound ways. The industry is watching closely to see how the company will handle them. Will ADOR and CEO Min Hee-jin, who was at the center of this storm, promote the group fairly? Or will there be unspoken tensions, or even a quiet sidelining of the group in favor of new acts? Furthermore, the relationships with other HYBE label artists like SSERAFIM and ILLIT, who were inadvertently dragged into the conflict, remain a giant question mark. Could interactions at year-end award shows be awkward, filled with lingering resentment? The story of NewJeans' contract rebellion is ultimately a cautionary tale. It reveals the immense power dynamics at play in the K-pop industry, where young artists, some still minors, navigate not only corporate interests but also intense familial pressures. It shows how a narrative of unity can be a carefully constructed facade, hiding private turmoil and conflicting agendas. For the fans, the bunnies, it's a bittersweet resolution. Their group is technically back, but the unshakable faith in their perfect unity is gone, replaced by the sobering reality that in the high-stakes world of K-pop, the most dramatic stories often happen off-stage. The next chapter for NewJeans is being written now, and everyone is waiting to see if this is a true rebirth or merely the calm after the storm.